Of undisclosed locations, I do have Giovanni Feroce down in Nashville at the big meeting of the GOP governors. Gio, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule down there to sort of bring us up to speed, back to speed here in Rhode Island. What's going on with Republican politics specifically? We chatted before the show that it's sort of like the NGA of all the governors, but now you're really getting into the weeds of specifically Republican politics. Talk with us. You've been to this event before, haven't you?
Well, not this particular one. This one was focused on candidates, potential candidates, and so forth. And so I was just really blown away by the sheer numbers that we have. I mean, I think we sometimes are in a bubble in Rhode Island, and we don't understand that, the rest of the country is red. I mean, when you look at the sheer numbers, 34 Republican governors, as opposed to 15 Democrats and one independent. So you would have thought you were in Providence a few weeks ago, just being here.
So talk with us. You've been down for a couple days now. What has the event been like? Who have you been meeting with? What have the topics been? And then I'll get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of the politics. What's life been down like in Nashville the past couple days?
Well, for me, it's been very educational, I think, and encouraging. I think there's been a lot of turnover when it comes to new faces in politics. You had a couple of governors in jeans, you had, a couple of tech guys, you had a Navy SEAL, you have all this other stuff that, gives hope, I think, to the common man, to the everyday person, that, we're getting real people back into politics and not these scripted, I'm going to, just go to school, run for an office, and I'm going to go to another office, and I'm going to run for another office, and then another office, and then another office, and they never had a job. And it's like, okay, well, and then we give them the keys to billions of dollars worth of decisions. And it's like, no, let's bring it back. Let's get guys and women that, have worked very hard in their life to have all aspects covered so that they're bringing leadership into the role and not just, policy papers. That's one thing that I know for a fact we don't necessarily elect on anymore. And I strongly suggest to all voters, look back and say, where did this person get their leadership skills? Mm-hmm. And trust me, for the most part, people who hold office never received leadership training. And, you should look at it. And we have programs in Rhode Island, like Leadership Rhode Island and other things, to at least say, okay, they went through something. Mm-hmm. Or someone like me who's been through a number of different, leadership training, months and years of training so that you know how to make decisions, and when confronted with hard choices or maybe no choices, what do you do? And you don't panic, you confront it and you go. There was one governor here who came into office with a $1.7 billion deficit, B, on a $6 billion budget, as the governor of North Dakota.
Wow. And
the guy, and he fixed it. And he didn't keep talking about it. He just, I'm going to go a little pothole somewhere. They fixed it, and they fixed it because there were big thinkers doing big things.
So what's the conversations been down there like? Specifically, let's talk about the president. And, we do see his approval ratings being where they are. What's the Republican take? And I'm sure it's across the board, but what have the discussions been around the president's performance today?
Well, at the end of the day, again, I speak for myself, but, I took heart to a particular speech by a former governor who came down and he said this, we're a team and there's no I in team. So sure, you might not agree with someone on particular issues, which certainly I don't and others don't on every issue. But, we'd rather be in a position to influence the decision maker than to not have a voice. And so, there is no doubt that Republican conservative policies, when properly followed, they work. I mean, everyone knows they work. We just have never had the opportunity in Rhode Island because we've just only had, one, like a governor at a time, no legislative support, no, federal even support on the large scale. So, we are where we are as a state, but we can work together, and I know there's enough Democrats that I personally know who are conservative enough, or at least are willing to look at sound policies that will put us structurally in a place to succeed.
Talk with us a little bit about that. A couple of follow-up questions. You see and you hear on the Democratic side sort of the groundswell of those grassroots candidates who want to get involved simply to oppose Trump. Do you see a sense of, on the Republican side, sort of bolstered, again, by the control of Congress down there to say, we want to be part of this? Do you get a sense that more even first-time candidates, you're seasoned, you've been in both business and politics, but do you get a sense that there's first-timers looking to get involved? I know you alluded to it a little bit, but again, those numbers, what does that look like?
Yes, there are a lot of first-timers, and but the ones that kind of stood out to me and I looked at differently are the ones that have been successful in large-scale enterprises and other things, willing to bring, again, leadership to the decision-making process. And I think that's extremely important. They have big picture views, and they're willing to say, no, I'm the leader. So I think in this particular case, given, again, the strength, think about it, 34 out of 50 governors are Republican. They are obviously doing something right? Everyone's following what they're doing. And so what I got out of it is they're saying, you know what, if you can't handle it in DC, then shift it back to the state. Okay, so if you can't fix healthcare, then send it back to me. I'll square it away. Okay, and I'll take that responsibility. And I'm definitely somebody who would think like that, and I'm sure others that are potentially running might have that view too. So those are the things, again, that I got out of this. And when looking around, and again, maybe if I could add the particular race we have on an off year in Virginia, there was a recent debate, and Ed Gillespie looked at his opponent, and he said, I'm running to be the leader of the state. You're running to be the leader of the resistance. So there's two different things there, and I absolutely agree with him. You have to have a clear path, you have to have a vision, you have to have an outcome, but more importantly, you have to show the people how you're going to get there. And that's where planning skills and so forth are extremely important.
So talk with us a little bit here. You've throughout the past year or so, you've yourself been in headlines here from the business side of things. What do you have to say as you look forward at potentially a path for politics again here in Rhode Island? How do you address those when folks say, tell us about what you've been through? What's your response?
I love it. I mean, do I love the everyday getting banged around here and there at times? No, but it comes with the skill set. That's why I was an infantry officer. That's why I was in civil affairs. I mean, there's different, you sign up for different things in life. I've always signed up to be an entrepreneur in the first phase or second phase of a business. So I'm either starting something that is an unknown, or I'm getting into something that I have to fix, right? Mm-hmm. So it's extremely, again, cognizant of myself and those around me to know that our planning has to take into account those particular perils that we might face on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And listen, at the end of the day, I could say one thing in defense of really myself, and I'm not one to really defend myself, but it's the following. What is someone knocking me on? The fact that I spent, all my money back in the state of Rhode Island? So I want to see, the governor or anybody else say, all right, stop living where you're living, get all the money you have, and put it back into the Rhode Island economy, like Giovanni did. Because that's what I did.
So you have a response to that. That is for sure. Go ahead.
It's wild. Think about that. I'm not getting accolades from someone because they don't know how to write, because they're not only irresponsible, they just don't have the expertise, so you don't know what questions to ask, Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I wanted to ask you, speaking of experience, was going to segue a little bit here from the experience down in Nashville, talking with other Republicans, potentially looking ahead here in Rhode Island. Really wanted to get your take, having been in the military. Let's talk nationally and internationally, where the country is right now, with the threat of North Korea, with what we've been hearing from the president. How do you think President Trump has handled the situation to date?
So I have to tell you, I can clearly, again, I'm a generational guy, and that's when you can tell that I'm authentic and honest, because obviously I'm going to lose some votes saying this, okay? The baby boomer generation, for a lot of them, they just cannot process what is happening. They just can't process it. And for those of us who've been part of a decision-making process, or who understand the State Department's role in politics as opposed to the Pentagon's role in politics, you clearly understand it's a step process. And I forget who interviewed Mark Janest recently, but he was spot on from the War College. In other words, you first come at it with diplomacy, and then you ramp it up. And so you can't have someone running around the world saying, I'm going to blow up America, I'm going to blow up America, I'm going to blow up America, and say, okay, I'll write him a letter and send him chocolates. But, and so at this point, unfortunately, it's really unfortunate, is that you have a resistance, you have folks who just are going to disagree on everything. So I want to qualify this. I was not, an early Trump supporter at all. I was a Marco Rubio guy, but for the following reasons. He had said something where it really kind of didn't sit well with me when he said, hey, that's go after terrorists and their families and so forth. And I said, well, no, you can't do that. And he said, well, no, the military will listen to me. And I said, no, well, obviously this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, because you cannot follow an unlawful order. Okay, so there's a process. And what should be calming for the United States people, and certainly our own citizens in Rhode Island, is that our leadership has levels. Our leadership is different departments. There are those who are going to go in and sit someone down and educate them on things. And so you should know. I myself would say, for him to say what he's saying means they're probably telling him to say it. Okay. You understand? They're probably saying, hey, you know what? This isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Throw this rhetoric out there, and then we'll take our psychological operations units inside civil affairs, and we will start penetrating the North Korean populace and setting the conditions and saying, hey, if you're not getting the message directly from your leader, by the way, read the news, here you go. And all of a sudden they start reading it and saying, I don't know if I like this. Because remember one thing, and it's funny because I'm Italian. Italy, was part of the Axis, right? And then it switched sides during World War II. It took the population to string up Mussolini. It took the the Italian citizenry to say, you know what, we don't want this. And that's what happened, as opposed to the Japanese exit of the war. So there's different ways to handle things. And so my professional take on it is that the diplomacy was utilized. There was no response, and there was only more rhetoric. And once it was identified that he did indeed have other capabilities, well, now you can't mess around, and you need to go to the Korean people directly, North Korean people directly, and hope that maybe somebody there starts getting courage to maybe even cause an uprising.
Do you think, given sort of what we've been hearing in the press, again, Kim Jong-un making sort of overtures that could attack Guam, how does that look? A North Korea attacks the United States at that location.
You'd have to take them out. I mean, there's only one response at that point. It's overwhelming force. So, this is not the 50s. This is a whole other ballgame. Remember, I'm someone who understands the military quite clearly and on all levels. We operate at 29% capability. We go beyond that. It's like, think about, in other words, we're driving the speed limit. We're going 55, 60, but we have a car that can go 250 if we want. And so just understand that, if we press that pedal, now obviously there are consequences with that, but, I think the region as a whole is starting to understand that they have a problem on their hands. And again, there are steps to the process. Unless we were attacked, we are not on the forefront of this engagement. Mm-hmm. Chinese, the Japanese, others in the region, Philippines, so forth, they are the ones that have to handle the problem. We are there, certainly to back it up, and we're there to protect South Korea. But, if they were to attack, have an unprovoked attack on people of the United States, especially with a nuclear weapon, it would be completely justified to go right at it and not ask questions.
Do you think Kim Jong Il could take? I mean, if you were here today, if you were a betting man, A, is he a rational actor, and B, do you think that he would follow through on his threats?
I think that he himself potentially could say something or want to take an action, and that's why I think it's imperative that we did indeed respond the way we have in the last week or two, because it would take the rest of the generals to say, you know what, no go here. You have the wrong leadership. Mm-hmm. Hey, leadership of appeasement never works. Okay, it never works. Trust me, I never met my grandfather because of appeasement. So the same thing will happen here. I clearly remember seeing Ronald Reagan getting inaugurated and the hostages getting, released. So we understand. Again, you might be turned off by who's in office if you don't support him in any way, or you don't like his message, or you don't like the delivery system of the message. But don't get confused. We were threatened in a big way, and we need to go at it. If I could, even on an example, sort of like we all remember, Boston's strong response and what happened there. Mm. And I'll never forget, there was one little kind of memo, or whatever you call it, that said, this is how Boston responds to things, as opposed to other cities. And it was like, they just took over and overran everything and just found the guys in the batter of the day, or 2 days. There wasn't, okay, we're going to go and have press conferences for 2 years. It's just the way it's done.
Well, I appreciate, you're taking the time to fill us in with the GOP politics down from Nashville as we're up here in Providence. You've been in the studio. And as to let us pick your brain a little bit from your military perspective as to what you think's going to happen or could happen in North Korea. So, Gio Feroce, we appreciate your taking the time to Skype in today. Hopefully we'll see you soon. But again, thanks for Skyping in. Take care down there. We'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. Can I put in one plug?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Only because my car is parked at the airport, and I know the airport's a big supporter, and I love what they're doing at the airport. Get the parking system that tells you which spots are open, please. Please. Don't understand why we don't do things like that. Or even like walk from the garage to the terminal, it's open. When it rains and snows, it's open. What's it take to just close it? Anyway, have a great day.
Okay, Gio Feroce sounds like he maybe almost missed his flight.